Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Welcome. I'm so glad you can join us on Mission Evolution, where we bring the latest knowledge from today's leading experts to support your evolutionary process. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour, we'll explore giving up or showing up, survival tactics for a changing world. If there's one thing we've all experienced the last several years, it is adversity. While it may be very easy to be positive and succeed when things are going smoothly, when the going gets tough, it's an entirely different story. Some people seem to excel during times of intense challenge, while others just roll over and give up. What makes the difference in how we respond to the trials of life? How can we become the winners regardless of our outside circumstance? With us this hour to delve into this topic is a man that has a long history of dealing with adversity, Steve Giblin. Steve, the author of Walking Through Mud, is a retired enlisted U.S. Navy SEAL Master Chief. He served for 28 years on active duty, 26 of those in the SEAL teams. He operated in the SEAL Operations Undersea Unit, SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team, and the Naval Special Warfare Development Group for half of his career. He was a senior enlisted leader for several commands and Joint Task Force. After retiring, he joined the Civil Services rank for another 9 years, resulting in a 37-year career working for the U.S. Department of Defense. His website, frogmanleadership.com. Steve, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Thank you, Gwilda. Thank you for having me.
So you have a pretty amazing career. Whatever prompted you to become a SEAL in the first place?
You know what? I didn't join the Navy to become a SEAL. I just joined the Navy to leave home and to hopefully grow up, do 4 years, go back home. And I was either going to be a first responder of some type. I wanted to either be a firefighter or a policeman. And if, like my father, if that didn't work out or if it just didn't appeal to me, I had other trades to back me up. But what I really wanted to do, I just wanted to get away from home for 4 years, get out from underneath my dad's roof and, and grow up. I found out about the SEALs when I was in boot camp, and that started the whole other path going.
Have you always been a person that likes intensity, or did you develop that through your career?
I grew up with intensity in my life. So I've always thrived off of it.
So what is an underwater demolition man?
They were the precursors. They were under UDTs is where an underwater demolition man worked. He worked in the underwater demolition teams, and they were frogmen of the 1940s and 1950s. They were born in World War II, and they, enormous amount of operational opportunities in the Atlantic and the Pacific theater and the Mediterranean as well. Then after World War II, they downsized. The Korean conflict came along and they ramped up again. And then after Korea, they ramped down again. And then Vietnam came along. And that's pretty much where the frogmen, the UDTs, and then the SEAL teams were born in 1962. And that was sort of the evolution in a quick snapshot, if you can.
So would you mind explaining what a frogman does? It's scuba, yes. And what exactly do you do underwater when you're working with that team?
Well, frogmen, so originally in World War II, they were surface swimmers is all they were. They swam across the beach and they set explosive charges onto obstacles that were to keep the amphibious forces from going ashore safely. And they also did some reconnaissance as well, mainly in the Pacific theater. They reported on Japanese positions on the various islands during the island hopping campaign. And they didn't really get into scuba until the Korean conflict and about that time frame when scuba actually came about. And they were the first in the military to use scuba in a combat role. Using scuba allows you to go subsurface and to do almost anything that you need to do within harbors, close to beaches, close to, inshore operations. You can actually attach explosives to a ship, which that was actually used during World War II by the Italians and eventually by the SBS as well, by the British. Then, you set your explosives with a timer on the hull of a ship and you swim away. And after that timer goes off, it blows a hole into the ship and disables the ship.
So let me see if I can put this all together. You're putting on how much does scuba gear weigh at this point? 75 pounds, say?
Oh, tops at the most.
Okay. So you're putting on 75 pounds worth of gear. Then you're having to haul the explosives with you. Go into an environment that's not user friendly for humans because we need to breathe air, and then go into a situation that if you're found there, you're in trouble. How do you hold it together while you're doing that?
A lot of it is training, and the training that we're put through, all starting from buds, and then even when you're in the teams, it's stress inoculation is what they do for us, and it just ramps up that stress during training. So when you go in on a real world operation, it really doesn't feel much different than what you did during training, unless of course you're on doing a land operation and you have bullets clicking by your head.
That sounds delightful.
Other than that, we probably train all of special operations. Try to train harder than we do in combat. So when combat situation does come, you are calm, cool, collected, and able to make decisions, smart decisions on the battlefield or underwater.
So basically, you've pushed your own envelope in training so that you have a little bit of leeway when you're on the job.
Absolutely.
Mm. So, what qualities? I mean, I don't think I could be wrong, but is everyone, with the right training could do this, or are there certain inbred, inborn qualities that one needs to excel as a SEAL?
There are inborn qualities, as you said, but there's also, they teach you some of these other things as well. Not everybody grew up learning about teamwork and, being in a position where you have to operate with other people to complement other people and to create that team. So you learn that when you're going through buds. When I was going to go through buds, when I was getting ready to go, I was extremely anxious. I thought everybody was going to be a monster. I was 6 foot tall, 185 pounds, and I thought everybody was going to be a beast. A couple inches taller than me, outweighing me by another 50 or 60 pounds. And when I got into training, there were one or two of those guys, but everybody else, I was one of the bigger guys in my class. And the guys that graduated with me after we were done with training and went into the teams with me, some of the most unassuming people that you would ever come across on the street. So my point is that not everybody has it. Not everybody wants it as they discover as they go through the difficulties of training. And the guys that do want it are those guys they'll have that forever. They will have that spirit, that drive, that tenacious attitude. They'll have it forever.
So here we are, 2, 3 years into some pretty adverse situations worldwide, between COVID and the social unrest, and now we're looking at wars and the whole enchilada. And most of the people going into this have had a pretty cushy life, at least in this country, until all of a sudden there's adversity. And what I've noticed is teamwork is almost non existent. Everybody's whining about what they can't do. This time, more than any other time, when we went to, into a desperate situation, people were not really cooperative. What's making the difference, and how can we turn that around?
It's in how we have gone into this cushy lifestyle, as you said. If people could just talk to some of the, and not just military veterans, but also people that grew up during World War II. They really had to roll up their sleeves, and it was one nation effort, a collective effort to help out the boys overseas, right? Our fighters overseas, the military helped to win the war, and that was for 4 years. That was for 4 years where people, were on. They had ration cards. They weren't able to buy a new car. They had to ration their gasoline. They had to ration their food. They had to, women couldn't wear nylon stockings, and these were some of the creature comforts that were around, but they had to sacrifice. They had to sacrifice. The entire country had to sacrifice for 4 years in order to support the war effort. And I think if people can just back off a little bit, take a look at the bigger picture, and really try to understand as to what this is and what either their help will provide, or if they go against the grain, what happens. Life just doesn't work out well.
So it's, you were talking about, and I really love the concept of putting yourself through the paces before it gets real out there. I mean, sometimes I look at people and they're up in arms about something absolutely ludicrous and mundane that is an inconvenience at best. And I wonder what they're going to do when something real happens. Sometimes I think that about myself. What am I going to do when something real happens? Well,
Right.
something real has been happening, but we haven't conditioned ourselves to be able to be strong, to have pushed the envelope of our own experience.
Right.
How can we turn that around, and how can we talk people into turning that around for themselves?
That's a tough one, because you're talking about convincing people to sacrifice and and I'm not talking about becoming a minimalist and getting rid of all your creature comforts that you have at home, but understanding what the situation is. And when everybody was locked down, I I really I was already retired, and for me and my wife, it wasn't as difficult as it was for other people that still had to work, still had to send kids to school, and a lot of these things. It is extremely difficult, and I understand. Getting upset about some of the smallest things that then just piles on top of one, on each thing. So people driving to work, traffic seems to be one of the most frustrating events in our life that, if you're commuting to work, it happens twice a day, 5 days a week. And getting upset at those people that cut you off, getting upset at people that aren't driving fast enough for you. That person that does the speed limit, how annoying, how dare they? Um, it's, we just need to back off a little bit. And, and it's a mindset. It's a mindset every day before when you get into that car, think about, okay, you know what? First off, you should get into the car on time, if not a little bit early, so you're not rushing to work. And being prepared, forethought, thinking ahead of things that could go wrong, traffic, lights, accidents, so on and so forth, and just accept it. You can't do anything about it. We don't have, the only thing we have control over in our life is how we react to things. That's it, cut and dry. So if we don't react, over the top, then our stress level is going to stay down, and it just helps make your day and your life a little bit easier.
There's a lot of different things that we can do. Not everybody likes them, but extreme sports, working out hard, um, pushing your own envelope a little bit so that you aren't taken off guard. Um, that's to me, that when you said that, that really resonated with me, is that I know that I'm strong because my life wasn't easy. And I see people like my sister, who was born later. Her life compared to mine was a lot easier, and she doesn't have the resilience that I do. How can we develop resilience without intentionally exposing ourselves to trauma and damage?
It's a gradual, stair step to, to be able to do that, pushing yourself. So, you tell yourself that you want to go run a marathon. You've never run 5 miles before in your life. You don't go out and you don't start running a marathon the first time you hit the street to run. You build up to it. You start with a mile, then you go 2 miles, and you go 3 miles, right? It's the same thing with building that resilience in yourself and being able to withstand and take these things that come at you, building that resiliency. You have to keep on pushing yourself every day, going out and doing something strenuous, if you can, whether it's, yard work, whatever, and continuing to push yourself and putting that strain on yourself, or even academically, pushing yourself academically to, beyond what you're normally used to doing. In work, same thing. Not everybody's up to going out and doing something physically hard every day, but even doing something mentally hard every day, mentally challenging yourself every day. If you learn something new every day, one thing every day, in a year, you learn 365 things.
So true. There's this concept of pushing yourself to the point of failure, but then going clear back to the beginning rather than the point of failure to move forward. Did you guys use that in the SEALs?
Yes. So better to fail in training than to fail in combat. And again, the more you bleed in training, the less you'll bleed in combat, that same saying. And you do push yourself to, the failure, if you will. And then you do back off and you go back and you debrief it. And debriefing with yourself or with a spouse and, talking about this, or a partner or a friend, what have you, and talking about what did I do? What could I have done better? And how could I have mitigated anything that was, anything that did go wrong? That is in essence what we did every day during training.
So how do we have to reevaluate or readdress or reapproach our feelings about failure? If you're going to push yourself to failure, I mean, we're taught never fail. And so I think it really puts a ceiling on what we're able to do because we're afraid of failure. Do you have to rethink that a little bit before you can do this method?
Sure you do. You have to be able to accept failure. You have to be able to accept that not everything is going to go perfect. And you may not get it right the first time every time. I think people set expectations a little bit too high for themselves. And I've taught people how to skydive. I've taught people how to shoot guns. I've taught people how to swim. And, like the swimmer that gets in the pool, the very first time swimmer, it's extremely frustrating. They want to be able to swim and glide like Michael Phelps. That's not how it works. If you think about the amount of time that it took Michael Phelps to become the best at what he was, that takes, a decade. Okay. It's the same thing with just about anything else. You have to be able to accept failure, acknowledge what you did wrong, accept it, and move on. Try it again.
In so doing, don't we build what I've come to call subroutines? So basically, a subroutine is a collection of actions that, when put together, form a seamless routine. Isn't that part of what you're doing? So you have those to fall back on rather than having to rethink the wheel every time?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you're doing that and you're building your subroutines, we're just about out of time in this segment, but I'd like to go into what does that look like in our daily life? How do we build our subroutines so that we have them to rely on when the going gets tough, that we don't have to rethink everything? But it is time for that break. Steve and I will return very shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
Do you enjoy paranormal, sci-fi romance, yet find yourself tired of the same old themes and storylines? Then you won't want to miss Kahir O'Donnell's latest exciting release, To Taste You Again. Alien Lord Kane McKean knew the moment that his destined mate was born. He watched from afar, waiting for her to grow from child to woman. However, before she was old enough, she was stolen from her home world by flesh pirates. Kane searched 10 long years to find her held in a suspension chamber. a 10-year-old girl in a woman's body. He rescued her and swore to give her time to grow up, but with his very life depending upon winning her as a mate, has he waited too long? Get your copy today. To Taste You Again by Kahira O'Donnell is now available on Amazon or KahiraO'Donnell.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Hello again. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. With us this hour discussing developing resilience is Steve Giblin. His website, frogmanleadership.com. Steve, we were starting to talk about subroutines and an organized set of actions that, when put together and performed over and over again, become a unified action. How can we build those? And once we do, how can we maintain our spontaneity and our flexibility?
So I was thinking about this, and it starts with the person who hits the snooze button in the morning. That's already on the wrong path. Hitting the snooze button only delays and procrastinates. And procrastinators, that's what they do. They keep hitting the snooze button on certain tasks. You approach the task on hand and you come into it head on. By not hitting the snooze button, you're not rushing. You are then developing those subroutines, and whatever each one of those steps might be, whether you take a shower and get dressed in the morning before you go down and get your coffee and get your breakfast, what have you. Those are all part of our routines. When something gets pulled out of that routine, or we start running out of time has now been pulled out of our routine, we then start to, kind of scramble a little bit. And that then makes us, just kind of scrambling even more, getting into the car, rushing down the road, the catastrophic things that could keep on happening, the ripple effect of hitting that snooze button in the morning. That is what disrupts your subroutines. So you can think about the same thing by getting prepared for other aspects of life.
So if you're, on one hand, if you have your subroutine and you're used to sticking with it, okay, and it's kind of a safety net, if you will, life does interfere sometimes. And it interrupts our subroutines. And I've seen people that are so inflexible, they just keep plodding along with their subroutine, even though alteration is really advised at that point. How can we find that balance?
Being able to, having some forethought and thinking of things of, the what ifs in life. What if this person, in traffic cuts me off? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to have to hit your brakes? Are you going to back off? Are you going to change lanes? I keep on using this analogy about driving in traffic because really it's almost a metaphor for living life. As you're going down this road at, 55, 65 miles an hour, and, you have to anticipate certain things happening. It's the same thing with life. Anticipating problems that come along and not losing your mind because a problem has come along, but dealing with it. And if you've already thought out some of these what ifs, then you're able to accept what's happened, change your course, and continue on.
Being able to change course on a dime right now, I think, is very important. Can we do that and still have our subroutines?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You incorporate some of these changes. So if there's, again, with the driving to work analogy, if there's road construction and it's going to be going on for a month, you now have to take a different route. Why would you keep on taking the same route and hitting the same detour sign when you know that you can take another route without even hitting the detour, right? It's incorporating that new subroutine, that change into your subroutine to keep that day going.
So the more we expose ourselves to, and the more we're having to jump from one subroutine to the other, the more fluid it becomes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Keeping that fluidity in your life, keeping that seamless, those seamless transitions. If it means that you have to leave for work 5 minutes early because of this detour, then leave 5 minutes early every day. You're changing your subroutine, and we condition ourselves to do that.
So then there's the other side of it. People like safety. And the more traumatic, maybe in certain ways, or the more fearful their family of origin was, the more they are locked down around what they feel is safe, even though ultimately it may not be the safe option. How can we tell if we're locking down into our subroutines looking for safety rather than doing what's required in the moment?
Your anxiety. And where has your anxiety brought you up to at that point? And being able to, decompress that on that moment's notice. That's being present in the moment, mindfulness, and knowing what to do, what steps to do, to do that. Having a near accident or, a near accident almost anywhere, right? You could be out in your yard and your lawnmower, something happens catastrophic, right? It doesn't really matter. But being able to be present in that moment, go through those emergency actions of what you have already thought out, and being able to, execute it. I know I speak a lot like military. That's what I did for my life. But these are just things that require that forward thinking, that forethought and preparedness. We don't let our tank run on empty, hoping that we can have hit a gas station here in the next couple of miles. And although we have seen people that do that, it's, if everybody could think about refueling their car when they hit quarter tank, never letting it go below quarter tank, we'll never see people walking on the side of the road with a gas can. But that's not always the case.
It just seems that some people, it's very automatic for them. For me, it's just automatic to see to the details of life and cover your bases. Other people, they just kind of float around aimlessly and are all surprised when things don't go well. What's the deciding factor there, and how can the floater shift their approach without coming out of their natural expression?
That's again, that's thinking about, not just planning your day, not just thinking one step ahead, but thinking 5 and 10 steps ahead. And those floaters, as you say, we all know them, and they're people that just kind of take life as it comes. Some of them are more adept at rolling with the punches, and some of them are not. Some of them, like you said, are very surprised that, oh my God, how did that happen to me? Well, it's because you weren't thinking ahead. Gee whiz, how did I run out of gas? Well, were you looking at your gas gauge? Were you paying attention to that? No, I was busy on my
Or
phone while I was driving.
or maybe they didn't step out of their subroutine.
Right.
That's the other side of it. If we're holding so strictly to our habits and not paying attention to what's actually going on in the time. So it has to do with situational awareness as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Situational awareness is key. And building that situational awareness is, again, taking a step back, opening up your optic, that lens, and being able to, see what else is going on around you. And, walking down the street, you see the people that are on their phones and they're walking down the street, they have zero situational awareness. Dropping that phone down and looking ahead, watching where you're walking, you won't run into people. You won't fall into the ditch. You won't fall into that manhole or whatever that everybody sees it on YouTube, that person that's on their phone and falls right into a hole. It's opening that up and being able to take everything in that's happening around you, and
You know,
then there won't be surprises.
when I used to train youth in wilderness survival, and the first thing I had to do was just walk with them and teach them how to, because and we all have been in this generation. We've focused on a screen. That was our babysitter. And now we focus on our phones. And the peripheral vision is very rarely used. I found I had to train children to use their vision and sensing before they could build situational awareness. And I think that this is a common problem with all of us right now. Would you agree with that? And if so,
100%.
how do we change that?
Uh, I agree with you 100% on that, Wilda. One of the things that I think that, for kids, when they're out on the playground, and let's just say that they're in a circle and they're throwing a ball around. I don't know how many people have ever done this, but gym class, I remember doing this in gym class. We were in a circle and we're throwing one ball, and you could throw it to whoever you wanted to once you caught the ball. But everybody has to pay attention because the ball might be coming at them. The kid that's not paying attention gets bopped in the chest with the ball, right? And they drop the ball. That's, now expand that into life. And, all these balls are going around. Our PE teacher would then throw in a second ball and a third ball. This is life. This is what happens. We've got multiple balls going around, and some of them you can afford to drop, some of them you can't. But that increases your situational awareness.
There's a topic that you brought up that I'd really like to go into, and that's stress. Okay. All the tools that we've been describing here can add to our stress. And stress, it eats us alive. It really does. How can we engage in this and not push our stress over the limit? Because we're having to constantly be aware from what we've been describing here. When do we just kick back, and how can we do that?
I recently read an article, and it's about being still, and it's not meditation. Although you can meditate while doing that, but taking that time, whether it's in the morning, at night, midday, even in the office, sitting behind your desk, taking that 5-minute break and deep breathing and being able to just be still and clear your mind of things. And you'd be surprised at that reset, what it does for you: clarity, anxiety, the intensity in life, and all of those things that bundle up and just create this this intense emotion that we have going on that clouds our vision, that clouds our decision making. And it's really done wonders for me. I've been meditating now for the last several years, and I was taught that in order to reduce my own personal anxieties and my stress. And believe it or not, you could do this while you're in the car waiting at a traffic light. You can just sit there and just be still, be quiet, be in the moment. And it will, it brings down that anxiety level.
So you developed some skills, meditation for one. Are those advocated in the military, or did you have to come up with those on your own as a result of all the stress of being in the military?
They are advocated in the military, and they're now they're teaching military wide, everybody on how to do this, teaching them to be able to lay there, or sit there, or even stand there, and just be able to breathe in deeply, exhale deeply, and how that can bring down the blood pressure, the anxiety level on things. And we learned how to do some of this unwittingly. I learned how to do some of this when I was in the teams going through training, and, doing breath hold exercises in the pool or in the ocean, diving in water that you can't even see your hand in front of your face, but still being able to move forward. And it's being calm and being able to go through with the exercise. It's amazing what that taught us in the ability to be resilient and to be able to take these things, these surprises, but also being able to operate in the unknown.
I know that PTSD, let's bring that one up, is a huge issue in the military. Would you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, PTSD isn't just a military thing. The If you look around and people that experience certain events in their life, and it could be anybody. A car accident can cause PTSD, depending on what that outcome was. A situation walking down the street, there was just on the news last night where some gal avoided being abducted and was able to wrestle free from from the person that was trying to abduct her and run to a car. If she doesn't have PTSD in the future, I would be surprised. It was a traumatic event. And it is all the methods that I just explained to you about, the deep breathing, the meditation, and the forethought, thinking ahead on things. These are the things that all these tools that could help you out with the PTSD. Being diagnosed with PTSD, I myself have been diagnosed with PTSD. At first, it's hard to accept. At first, it is just something that I don't have this. I don't want to have it. You have to accept it first. And then when you start to talk about it, you realize, you start off really small and you start talking to other people, onesies and twosies about it. And you realize that some of my best friends have it. And, some of my best friends we're all military guys. We all were in the SEAL teams together. So there's no surprise there. But it's to really go in deep as to what causes PTSD. I mean, there's books out there. There's reams of it out there. I wrote about it in one of my chapters. But it's it's the adrenaline that those spikes that you never really come down from. And again, it builds and builds and builds, depending on how many of these situations that you've been exposed to. I could think of one non-military profession that experiences that all the time, and that's firefighters, our first responders.
Yeah, police officers.
Yeah,
and,
police
and a
officers,
lot of us
firefighters.
a lot of us in this day and age, I fear for our children that have lived through COVID because the parents got upset, everything changed. They probably have their fair share of PTSD that they'll have to deal with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
Social separation. Being able to talk to your friends just how you and I are talking right now. But if that's the only way that you can do it, it is going to develop some form of a PTSD like symptom, if not PTSD itself.
Right.
Our children, our teens and our preteens, they were not prepared to deal with all of a sudden this social upset of not just social distancing, but staying at home, learning from home, doing everything from home. The walls begin to close in.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Steve, it's about that time in the show when I have to ask you, what is your mission?
My mission is to help anybody and everybody that I can, to help them understand that, number one, PTSD should not be, this this stigma that everybody's afraid to admit when they do have it. And the second thing is that we need to be kinder to everybody, be kinder to each other, get along a little bit better, and try to bring this divisive country back together again.
And that is the key, isn't it? Is rebuild that team or build it for the first time so
Right.
we have our people around us to draw on.
Yeah.
So, what is your vision, Steve, for post-COVID? Not that I don't know we'll ever really be post-COVID, but on the other side of the trauma of this whole episode we've been going through, what's your vision for the world? What do you think we can gain from it?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I think what we can gain from it is that these kinds of things are out there, and there's other parts of the world that have been dealing with the Ebola virus, their own pandemics in their own right that have been able to been corralled in their own country. Now this thing has traveled around the world several times. Now we have several variations. again, it's being prepared and accepting that this is here. We have to deal with it. Our new normal is dealing with, the aftermath of the pandemic, the deaths. We've just exceeded 1 million in the United States.
Yes. Well, Steve, I'm afraid we are at the end of our time
Okay.
together. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your amazing experience and knowledge with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Our guest this hour has been Steve Giblin. Steve is a retired Navy SEAL and the author of Walking Through Mud. His website, frogmanleadership.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. Please be sure to join us right here next time as this mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.